Hi, people. So, today I wanted to talk about the difference between opioid withdrawal and benzo withdrawal, or should I say psych med withdrawal. And by psych meds, I mean benzodiazepines, antidepressants, antipsychotics, all of those, as opposed to opioids. Now, I have never had an experience with opioid withdrawal. So, yeah, I haven't ever taken them long term or anything like that. However, I'm very aware of how different the withdrawal is to a benzo, an antidepressant, and an antipsychotic. And I realize when I say things like, oh yeah, I went into drug withdrawal or I went into withdrawal, people who haven't gone through this, obviously that's where they go. That is where they go, to the opioid, to the, even heroin or something like that. People just, before this, obviously, we didn't know that this even existed, as many people don't. So I have to be mindful, actually, of when I say drug withdrawal. So I try and say psych med withdrawal. But then again, people are like, well, what's a psych med? It's like this world, until you go in it, is something that, no one knows about. And even the doctors, as we know, have no idea. Some of them do. Some of them are getting a little bit clued up. But the people that have gone through it know. So I think the main differences are that psych med withdrawal, benzodiazepines, antipsychotics, and antidepressants, it is a harm. It's a harm to the nervous system. And in some cases, it really is like a brain injury. Like for me, when I stopped the benzo, with no taper, that on my GABA receptors, which is like everything in your body, it just went, and that is a brain injury. Mark Horowitz, who I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, a psychiatrist who went through his own experience on antidepressants and got harmed by an antidepressant because there was either no taper or a way too fast taper off his antidepressant after being on it for like 20 years or so. And so he experienced the same situation where it's just such a blow to the system when it's done so quickly that causes a brain injury. And that really is what it is, not to like trigger anyone or anything like that, because the brain is incredible at healing. So, yeah, it's really that. And the nervous system is deeply affected, causing things like akathisia, which is obviously this pacing and the fast thoughts and the internal anguish, just the hell and torture. It's very different to opioid withdrawal, heroin withdrawal, alcohol withdrawal. I'm trying to think of all the other withdrawals that people could probably go to in their mind. And for me, that's more of a like sweating at night, sweating it out, maybe shaking in the body, having this actual kind of withdrawal of a substance rather than harm to the system, like harm, like the opioid stuff kind of, it leans more towards the body being very addicted, like, oh God, I really need that thing. And especially with heroin and also alcohol, that sort of addictive element to it where it's like, oh, I really need it. I need, that feeling. And years ago, I used to have kind of a thing with eating. So I can relate to that, where I just really needed that chocolate bar, And I'm sure God, addiction is just such a common thing for us all to experience in some form, whether it's like you're addicted to work or cigarettes or exercise, there's all sorts of things there. But when it comes to opioid withdrawal, it's that sort of like sweating and feeling terrible in the body, maybe even like flu-like symptoms. I mean, this is what I've heard and obviously what I've read and all of that. And you can get, suicidal ideation, you can get dark thoughts, and you can go through a really, really, really dark time. It's not like your mental health can really take a serious dip. So there's that. Whereas with what we've experienced is the harm and the brain stuff. It's all tapped into the nervous system in a different way. And the way that it has harmed our nervous systems makes this kind of... I was talking to somebody actually yesterday, a client, and she sort of likened it to like you've been plugged into the wall and you're getting electrocuted, and that's kind of how with this withdrawal feels. It's like you're literally your circuit, your inner circuit or inner nervous system is just like, completely wired and warped and in this situation. Whereas an opioid withdrawal, that is not the case. You don't experience these very, very inhumane, bizarre feelings that we do in this withdrawal. Now, I know I'm aware that I haven't been through opioid withdrawal or heroin withdrawal or alcohol withdrawal, but from what I hear and what I see and what I read, by all means, if someone has been through those withdrawals, please do share your experience in the comments. I am kind of going off, what I'm sensing happens to people, because I feel this particular injury that we experience through this harm, this medication harm, is just unlike anything else. Like, it's just... And I think that's what I'm really trying to put across and sort of break down is the logic of this. What has happened? The brain has been completely jarred. The nervous system has been jarred, harmed, both harmed. And what comes with that harm? Another thing is opioid withdrawal and all the other withdrawals, alcohol, there was another one, brain is having a blank, I am tapering my mirtazapine, so thoughts just suddenly go. So apologize for that. That's another thing, is memory. So that's what I wanted to get onto. So our withdrawal, this psych med withdrawal, it can last for a very long time. I am in this experience now for 5 years. We all have different histories. I got given loads of medication, polydrugged, so I had a long time of tapering off 3 medications. Whereas obviously with an opioid, you can go through the withdrawal and it could last a matter of weeks. So that's a very, very, very important and big difference to this. And why a lot of people just don't understand. They're just like, they can't believe it, that you're still going through it, especially when you come off the medication. A lot of people would say to me, but you're off the medication now, it's not in your system anymore, and it's been like a year, like how can it still be affecting you? And it's like, okay, let's go back to the brain injury, the nervous system harm. Now think about, when somebody has a brain injury, something that someone is going to take seriously. Like sometimes I say, imagine if I got into a car crash and I had a really bad brain injury from that car crash, and it took me a few years to actually get back to myself. Okay. Now, obviously, I don't want to trigger anyone because that's not necessarily has to be your story. And we are all on different timelines of healing with this. We all are. So, but it's, what I'm trying to get at is the difference in, that was my dog, not me farting. He's just down there. The difference of actually really your body going through something really extreme to, and being harmed that causes this long-term healing journey rather than opioids, alcohol. What was the other one? Heroin. Heroin. My housemates are probably like, what's she talking about? So, yeah, obviously they come with probably months of getting over the experience and their own healing journey and all that kind of thing. But this is like, this is healing your system situation. Like, you really need to heal that nervous system and that brain. And it can take a while. For some people, it's years. And that is something that a lot of people just don't understand. And that's why a lot of people won't believe you. And it's so deeply frustrating. And I know, I mean, God, it's not only is it horrific for the person going through it, but also for the people around them, their family, their partners, their friends, to really be there for somebody for that long. And so, yeah, this is why I'm here making these videos, because this is a long journey, and we need a community. We need a community. I mean, ideally, this never happens to anyone ever again. And that's also another reason why I do this channel, because it's like, wow, this really needs awareness, because this kind of harm, it's just not okay. So yeah, I hope that has kind of hopefully explained the main differences with this. And I need to be, and to remind yourself to be more mindful with language. And I'm having to do that more, because in my training as a counsellor, I start to sort of slowly share about this situation, this drug stuff. I'm aware that, you know, as we know, lots of people don't believe it. They don't understand it. They're just like, what? And as well as doctors, you know, no one admits this happens apart from the people in this community. So, and like I say, there are some people that are starting to make videos out there about this, like psychiatrists and things like that, like Mark Horowitz and Dr. Joseph at the Taper Clinic. You know, he's really making some great videos out there, and like more for that. But what I realize is when I'm explaining this experience to people that don't get it, and I'm like, yeah, and I was going through this drug withdrawal in the psychiatric units, and then I just suddenly go like, hang on a minute. And I was sort of saying in my counselling course, we sort of share as a circle. And I said, you know, I was trying to explain, it was like the most torture a human could go through. It felt like I was in hell itself. And then I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, their reference to drug withdrawal is very different to mine, because no one knows what this drug withdrawal entails, and it entails a completely different set of symptoms, like akathisia being the worst thing amongst all the other stuff, the horror show of stuff that can happen to you, the weird feelings in your nervous system, the bizarre, your eyesight goes, your hearing goes, your movements, your thoughts, everything you could imagine, the sensations in your skin, the weird, terrifying stuff like mentally you're experiencing, the completely disorganized thought. Some people, you know, psychosis, feelings like you're having a stroke, feelings like you're having a seizure, I had this feeling where I felt like the whole earth was moving, like rocking. My brain was moving around in my head, but obviously it wasn't, but it felt like it was. Like terrifying stuff I can't even begin to put into words. I remember when I was really bad, it felt like time had stopped. It was the weirdest thing. And if you could imagine you were kind of like in a nightmare, let's say it's a dream and it's not real, and you're like in your dream, and it's one of those dreams where like, you know, you're running but you're not moving. And it was like that, in a sense that time had stopped, and each time I looked at the clock, like only 1 minute had gone by, and again like only 1 minute had gone by, and it was the weirdest thing. Like either it was part of some sort of psychosis I was experiencing, or like the mechanism of time in my brain had just warped with all of this medication stuff, and it couldn't work out time. Anyway, I don't want that to scare people, but also I am here. I'm still here, and I'm functioning, and I am on 7 milligrams of mirtazapine. I tapered down again last night to 7 from 8. Now that would work out to be like a 12.5% cut. I have been doing quite well So yeah, I've been feeling that out. I was doing 2%, 5%, 10%. And now I'm like, well, let's try 12.5%. So I'm just sharing that because I think if you are doing well, and I mean like, when the time comes around when you'd expect to feel the taper. So I've been waiting like 4 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, because I often feel like I'll know by 3 weeks. I sort of gauged that. But initially I was waiting 4 weeks because I wanted to know, like, what's the timeline? When am I going to feel the cut? And it was so mild in comparison to the before when I was tapering the mirtazapine, and I just couldn't even move at 5% without horrendous symptoms. So yeah, it's a delicate process. And I think because I'm now getting down to these little bits, I'm going to really, slow it down again, back down to like maybe 5%, and just bit by bit, bit by bit. Okay, I'll leave that on there. That was my little recap of my mirtazapine taper. Yeah, which is also another huge difference to opioids and things like that, is that actually, we do have to taper off these over kind of the course of years sometimes. It depends, obviously, how long you've been on the medication, if you're harmed, all the stuff. For me, yeah, it's going to be a long taper. All right. Love.